All right, welcome to the Money community. I wanted to go through some interesting topics like work from home. Now, a lot of you are probably hearing from your bosses that they want you to come back into the office. And you're thinking, well, why? I'm more productive at home. What's the push? And I think a lot of people are asking these questions. In fact, I'm looking at a Forbes article right now that the title is pretty funny. Workers are less productive working remotely. At least that's what their bosses think. And so is it that their bosses think that? Now, I think there's a whole bunch of reasons why some bosses may think that. And I think that some bosses are so old school that they just want people back. It's easier for them to see this world in which everybody's at their desk working. And then there's another group of bosses that saw what worked well during the pandemic, and they're asking people to do a flex schedule where, because no one can deny there is some value of face-to-face time. But I think that can be done easily with setting up once a month team rapport building strategies. Of course, then you have some people who are left out of that, and that's their choice living far away from the office. But they're so valuable, you don't want to let them go. And I think that's something that those people that live far away have to deal with. Hey, it's a trade-off. I'm trading not getting a really good rapport with my coworkers for whatever lifestyle they chose to live far away from work. And I think that's cool if you can set it up that way. But then there's another group where they're either asking mandatory 3 days a week from everyone, so you can't even live far away, or mandatory 100%. And of course, it gets worse and worse in my view, the more you're forcing people to come back, especially when it works. I think pre-pandemic, there was a big question. I was actually working on this at a previous company to test this out. And of course, the pandemic just pushed everything to the front, and we have to make it work. And we did. And we not only did, but we made productivity even bigger than it ever was before. Now, of course, you can argue productivity was bigger than it was before because everybody was locked in their home and there was nothing else to do but work. And that's fair. And I also think when things opened back up again, there was probably a productivity decrease because everybody was like, I am free. I want to go outside. I want to live my life again. But I think that came back. And I think the problem here is if you have a company that is forcing everybody to come back without a really legit reason, of course, everybody has a different reason, a different work situation, different work environment. But if there isn't a legit reason why, to me, that speaks volumes. And I'm going to say in my industry. So I'm in the film industry. Visual effects specifically, which could translate to gaming as well. So if you have a company that's forcing you to come back, then I would question their trust, not only in the employees, but really their production staff. Because it's the production staff job to keep everybody on schedule, to keep everybody productive. And if you're tracking things right and you're starting to see somebody fall off, then you bring them in and question, hey, what's going on? Something happening? Just like you do in the office. It's really no different, except in the office, a production employee can get up and walk around to each person's desk. But all you have to do to change that is just chat. Hey, checking in. Let's do a quick video call. You do a quick video call. You're literally talking to the person as you would walking around. I think there is a trust factor in the production employees, or it's saying that your production staff isn't very good. And maybe that's true because there was such a boom in content during the pandemic. And I saw that happen in November of 2020. What hit animation first was the immediate spike in the cost of an animator. And you couldn't keep an animator unless you jacked up the rate because they could go down the street and get it from somewhere else. And then it just kind of trickled down the rest of the pipeline, then started at the beginning of the pipeline and worked its way back up to animation. And so we had this overall rate increase across the board because there just wasn't enough employees to meet this huge content demand, because everybody's at home with nothing to do but watch movies and play video games. What then happened is that now people aren't stuck in their homes, so there isn't a need for that much content. And then you've got all these other factors compounding and making it even worse. So you've got the AI thing, of course, which may eliminate some jobs potentially, but to me, that's pretty minimal. The union strike for two major unions, writers and actors. Now that just basically puts a stop to all content being made. So you can keep people working who are already on projects, but very, very, very beginning of the pipeline, which is the writers, are on strike. And then the actors who do the work to get it on film are on strike. And so now you put a complete grinding halt, and the only work available is what's already in progress. The world economy that is restructuring itself again from everyone being forced in their homes and then coming out of their home, and there's this big boom of everybody just wants to go on vacation. Now that things are starting to settle back down, you've got an economy that's readjusting itself across the board. You've got interest rates spiking, trying to bring inflation back down, which it's started to. It's still inflating, but it's called disinflation, where it goes from inflating way up here to where it's now inflating down here. So essentially, financial crisis that's brewing right now. You've got all of these people hoarding their money or hoarding their situation. So you can see it firsthand of all of these startup companies collapsing. And the reason a lot of this has happened, not for everybody, but the reason most of it is happening is because funding is being pulled. And it's like, okay, we need to stop betting on this wild card here that we don't know if it's going to be a safe bet or not. We need to extract the funds and basically kill off all these new startups and do what we know works. So if you've got everything contracting all at once, what that's doing is putting more of the power back into the employer's hands versus the employee's hands. So you've got this shift in, now we don't need as many of you, so now the price drops. But not just the price drops. I know we went off on this tangent, but now we can ask you to come back in, and now we can kind of maintain control. And I think that's probably what's really happening, is this feeling of lack of control. When all of this stuff is collapsing on you as a business, you're like, what can I control? And you're going to try to maybe go over the top and micromanage when you don't necessarily need to. But maybe, just maybe, the bigger companies that are doing this have a bigger agenda, which is the commercial real estate. This distortion of the market that the governments did by locking everyone in their homes created, of course, this economic calamity that we're living through right now. But on a specific scale, it really, really wreaked havoc on the commercial property business. In the most vacant metro markets between the last quarter of 2019 and the first quarter of 2023, office vacancy rates in California Tech Hub rose from 5% vacancy to 25% vacancy. So you've got 25% just in California, and we could probably go across the country and see something big, but I know the numbers are enormous. And if you've got all of this commercial real estate that's vacant, that puts a lot of pressure on REITs that are in these massive hedge funds like BlackRock and State Street and Vanguard that basically run the world. They own 80% of all of businesses. So what they can do is put pressure on these big companies to say, hey, we're going to push your stock price down unless you do X, Y, and Z. And that's where they're putting a lot of pressure on a whole bunch of things that we're seeing in businesses right now that don't seem very business friendly. But in this specific instance, they've got a whole bunch of REITs that they need to keep propped up. And the only way to do that is to get people back in the office. And so I'm not saying, I'm just speculating here, but when you've got these three entities that own 80% of all businesses in the country, they've got a lot of power. Again, speculating, I think these big hedge funds are putting pressure on these big businesses to say, hey, you need to kill this work from home thing, even though it worked for 3 years, and bring people back into the office. That's just my opinion. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. Please comment below if this type of video is helpful to you, if you enjoy it. If you enjoy any of my videos, subscribe to this channel or like any video that you especially enjoyed. All right, take care. Thank you.